Great post. How can we that live outside the US help? I would love to know. Hi, Sophia. Thank you so much for this comment. I don't think folks outside of the US realize how much of an impact it has when Americans hear that you are worried about us, that you care about us, that you are rooting for us, the American people. And I also think folks outside the US and us as Americans, we're not really aware of how much censorship we are experiencing, how much propaganda is being fed to us on a daily basis, and how much accurate information is being withheld from us and from you all. For example, the resistance movement protests are massively underreported in the press, and when they do get reported, the turnout of those events is minimized significantly. And we know that Trump is actively bullying our media, intimidating them. And we've seen a number of corporate media outlets who are no longer willing to fact check Trump and his regime and their lies. And they don't really want to report on things that are going to tick him off and draw his attention to them. The free press is known as the fourth branch of government. However, we are watching many of them do the same thing that the legislative branch and executive branch are doing, which is being active collaborators, active pillars of support for Trump. And that has two effects. One, we in the US are not hearing about what our neighbors are doing, but it also means y'all in other countries are not getting an accurate depiction of what the resistance movement looks like. Because our press is underreporting it. Our press is minimizing how many millions and millions of people are actively fighting back against this regime, which of course is why it's so important for us right now to support independent journalists and social media creators who are willing to accurately describe what is happening, who are not afraid, or are afraid and yet are still willing to find their courage and hold the line and not capitulate and not become appeasers and collaborators. And as much as y'all are not hearing all of what we're doing inside the US, we aren't really hearing support from folks in other countries. And I liken it very much to that narcissistic ex-boyfriend that so many of us have had to experience in our lives, who, as part of their attempt to consolidate their control over you, would actively separate you from your friends and family, try to isolate you from all of your support networks so that you were easier to manipulate and control, and so that it would be harder for you to resist their abuse, much less to break free of them. And Donald Trump is America's narcissistic, abusive boyfriend. Do you think he's blowing up our relationships with our allies on accident? He's pissing off Canada, he's pissing off Mexico, Panama, Denmark, and by extension, all of NATO, our longtime ally, Ukraine. USAID bought us loyalty in lots and lots of countries, and he has yanked all of that. He is trying to get our allies to abandon us. He is isolating the United States so that the only countries that have access to us are Israel and Russia, and petty tyrants Bukele in El Salvador and Viktor Orban in Hungary. The only countries he wants us to have relationships with are also run by malignant narcissists, because he knows they're not going to do a goddamn thing to stop what he's doing to our country. And I think it's more than that. There's all of this kind of soft censorship, even on TikTok and even using Google now, where the algorithm has shifted so that Americans don't hear what is happening. I have to go search out World Talk and Global Talk. I go to The Guardian and the BBC to read much of my news, where the headlines are very different than corporate media news headlines. And I know that Trump wants to leave us friendless. He wants the American people to feel like we don't have allies elsewhere, that everybody else in the world hates us. And I cannot tell you how encouraging it is to read comments from people who are rooting for us and want to know how they can help. The demographics of folks who watch my YouTube are very different than my TikTok. A large portion, close to 30% of my viewers on YouTube are not from the United States. And I feel like that puts me in a very privileged position because I'm constantly reading comments and getting encouragement from folks outside of the States who are like, we stand with you, we are supporting you, we support the resistance movement, we support the pro-democracy movement. And I forget that your average American probably doesn't get that perspective. They don't get that feedback. Right, and Trump blusters and lies to the rest of the world saying he's got 70+% approval ratings when he absolutely does not. And I don't know if your average international viewer of those press conferences is hearing any fact checking at all. And I don't know how much y'all are hearing reports of what the resistance movement is doing in the US. And so I just want to get to your question here specifically. How can folks who are not Americans help out? This, in and of itself, letting us know that you are standing in solidarity with us, this means a tremendous amount. the weekly National Indivisible call or the Resistance Lab trainings or the Big Tent webinars, like any of the kind of pro-democracy online events that I go to, I love it when they point out the fact that there are loads of people from outside the US who are joining in on these calls. What an encouragement. I would say if you live outside the US and you are able to give to any of the pro-democracy causes, that goes a long way. Also, participating in any of the economic blackouts that we are calling for, hugely impactful. Part of the reason Tesla is struggling so hard, part of the reason the board of Tesla has told Elon Musk he better back the fuck out of our government and try and go save their plummeting stock shares, their pitiful sales, is because not only folks in the US, but folks in Canada, Australia, Europe, y'all are not buying Tesla vehicles. You are helping make that difference for us here. Your economic pressure really, really matters. When folks in Canada say in my comments, like, I'm so sorry, but I'm not buying US goods right now, do not apologize. Thank you. That is helping us. Please do not buy things from the US right now. Economic pressure from millions of people in the US and globally is incredibly important. If folks have other suggestions for what people internationally can do to support the American people, I would love to hear it. But also, please don't underestimate the value of the moral support that you lend to us and the economic power that you wield to weaken this regime. Thank you. Thank you for your comment. And if, again, folks have other suggestions for ways that people internationally can help out, let me know. Drop them in the comments.